I'm share my screen. Okay, so sorry, ek gaan net 'n sekonde. Daar is 'n video of twee, so ek wil gou net met sound. Ek het gou net met sound gesê. Dit gebeur elke week. Wat het ek verlede week gedoen? Help my. Okay, daar is hy. Ek weet nie wat ek gedoen het nie, maar daar werk dit nou. Okay. First law I'm covering is the players. So what about the players? So when it comes to the nomination and the replacement of players, it's of utmost importance that captains, they nominate their sides before the toss. They need to come to the toss with their nomination seats or a list of players in writing. Full list of players, 11 of them. Do never ever toss if you don't have the nomination sheets in writing. Never let a captain tell you, let's toss. I'll give you the piece of paper after the toss. So does the law allow for a player to be changed once the toss has taken place? So yes, the law allows for that change. There is one condition, and we'll get to it now. But what I mean by this change is, I'm not here referring to a substitute, and don't confuse this with there's something else in the playing condition. It doesn't get examined here, but it's you've been exposed to it. Concussion substitutes. Those are something totally different. Don't get confused here. When I'm referring to replacement of players, what the law tells here is you have player A, and let me rather use names. You have player A is Peter and player B is Cindy. So what the law here means is you want to replace Peter with Cindy. Does the law allow for that? Yes, the law allows for a player to be replaced. But there's one condition. You need the consent of the opposing captain for that player to be replaced. This is an example, and there is a difference between how the law sees the window period when a player can be changed, and how the playing conditions see when a player can be replaced. Just for interesting sake, I'll mention both of them. Under law, there's no window period, i.e. player can be changed at any time. If you look in the law book, you do not see them indicating a specific time. But if you look at the playing conditions, you'll actually see there is a window period. That window period is player can only be replaced between the toss and the start of the game on day one. If something happens after the game has started, a player cannot be replaced according to playing condition. But to come back to a player want to be changed, so now at the toss, 9:30, you had Peter on the nomination seat. So the game starts at 10 o'clock. So while they're busy warming up, they're playing soccer, Peter breaks his ankle. So now obviously with a broken ankle, I mean, you are out. The captain then now comes to you and say, Peter just broke his ankle. Can we replace Peter with Cindy? The law allows for that, but there's one condition. You need the consent of the opposing captain. So what needs to happen is when the captain comes to you, you need to go to the, you tell the captain, okay, the law allows for this, but we need consent of the opposing captain. Let's go to him or her. So now you need to walk over and you need to explain, yeah, Peter broke his ankle. We were asking permission to replace him with Cindy. Do you give your consent? If Peter say yes, then officially you can replace Peter with Cindy. You actually scratch out the name Cindy as a Peter and replace it with Cindy. If the captain say no, you are then not allowed to replace Peter with Cindy. Cindy with Peter. It's in the captain's right to say no. The law allows for it. Some people will say, yeah, but it's not in the spirit. The law allows for it. The law actually gives this condition. It's not up to umpires. It's not up to coaches. It's not up to anyone. It's up to the opposing captain to say yes or no. If he or she say yes, you will replace Cindy with Peter, Peter with Cindy. And if the opposing captain say no, you cannot replace Peter. Peter, yes, will now have a broken ankle. Obviously, Peter won't be able to partake in this game with that broken ankle. Technically, the side will play with 10 players because you will allow a sub because the player is injured, but obviously that sub cannot bowl or bat. So when it comes to the nomination and replacement of player, so now once you've replaced this player will be then considered as a nominated player and can then bat and bowl. So the replacement player, if this is now just the law saying if the replacement player has bat in the innings already, the a replacement player shall not bat in the innings which a nominated player he or she is replacing as completed innings. Again, this is law. Unserved penalty time, warnings, and suspensions will be inherited by the replacement. This is law. There are playing conditions that does not allow for this. As I said, don't want to confuse you on the playing conditions for a replacement player, where in terms of the window period when the replacement can take place, and the playing condition also states penalty times and warnings and suspensions does not get inherited, but that's playing condition. I'm just covering this just in terms of law. But what I want you to take out of this is the replacement player. It can happen, but you need the consent of the opposing captain. That's what I want to bring across. When it comes to Law 2, which covers the umpires, so before the toss, umpires to meet with captains, you'll discuss the balls to be used during the game. Usually point number 1 gets covered by playing condition. The playing condition will state which balls to use. The law tell us, please discuss the hours of play, times and durations of, and meals and those things. Again, point number 2, the law doesn't use specific times, but that's why there are playing conditions for. Point 3, boundaries. You need to discuss it with the players, especially if there are obstacles within the field of play, if there are overhanging trees. Very, very important that these gets discussed with the captains of what you're going to do, how you're going to handle it. You cannot not cover it, especially if there's, let's say, rugby poles inside the field of play on the school field, or there are overhanging trees. You cannot let the ball hit the poles, or now it hits the overhanging tree. Now you want to say, oh, yeah, but you're going to handle it by saying, no. That's why it's important in your pre-match duties. Walk around the field, check if there's anything, check if there are any overhanging trees. Then if there are, discuss it at the toss and get clarity on exactly how you're going to handle it. We usually get guided by the custom of the local team. So you can ask the home captain, the rugby poles, how do you handle it here? Your overhanging trees, what is the custom of the ground? Whatever you discuss at the toss, get consensus at the toss, and it will then be that for the remainder of the game. So you'll discuss the use of covers, any special conditions affecting the match. In terms of fair and unfair play, so who are the sole judges? Umpires Always the sole judges of fair and unfair play, because we are objective, impartial. Promise you, even the best of players, they are subjective when it comes to sport. They will have blinkers on. They will only look at it from their point of view. Yeah, one or two players will be level-headed and will be objective, but I would say that's 1 out of 10. The other nine, they have blinkers on, and for that reasons, when I say we umpires are the sole judges of fair and unfair play. So when it comes to this, also with the fitness of play, again, law tells us the umpires and them together, they decide whether conditions of ground, weather or light, or exceptional circumstances means it's dangerous or unreasonable for play to take place. Again, it's in our hands as umpires. Again, teams are subjective, players are subjective. They will have blinkers on. So conditions shall not be regarded as either dangerous or unreasonable merely because they're not ideal. And sometimes the grass are a bit wet and the ball is a bit wet, but a little bit of wetness does not warrant ground conditions to be unreasonable or dangerous. So what is the definition of dangerous? If there is actual or foreseeable risk to the safety of the players or the umpires, and conditions shall be regarded as unreasonable if, in your opinion, would not be sensible for play to proceed, like a dust storm. A dust storm wouldn't, in terms of the safety of the players, wouldn't be dangerous of the safety of the players, but with, sand in your nose, sand in your eyes, the wind, it would not be sensible for play to continue, and that is where this unreasonableness, unreasonable comes in, and that's the definition for unreasonable. In umpires, consider the ground to be so wet or slippery, and this is the stuff that you need to take into account when you do decide how the conditions of the ground is. So what you need to do, if in your once you inspect the field, the two umpires together, you feel that it's so wet or slippery as the bowler wouldn't be able to have a reasonable foothold. There are puddles of water everywhere, so fielders wouldn't have power of free movement. There's lots of mud on this, on the square. Batters would not be able to play their strokes or run between their wickets. If these are the case, these are signs that conditions are dangerous and unreasonable. So in terms of suspension of play in dangerous or unreasonable conditions, umpires together agree. You make that decision together. So the law tells us if the umpires do not agree, you need to suspend play immediately. This is law. Playing condition is actually different, but I want to point out there is a difference between the law and the playing condition. Whereas, let's say the darkness is setting in, you look at your colleague tells you, I think it's dark, and you think, no, I think it's light enough. According to the law, you need to go off, because the law tells us if umpires do not agree, you need to suspend play. According to the playing condition, in the same scenario, you think it's dark, your colleague thinks it's the light, you need to stay onto the field. There needs to be an agreement before you go off. When it comes to preparation and maintenance of the playing area, and when it comes to the rolling of the pitch, before the game starts, let's say our 4-day or our 3-day Cards game starts on a Monday, 10 o'clock. So before Monday, 10 o'clock, the ground staff, they in charge of the pitch, they prepare it. They actually not 10 o'clock, but 9:30. The game actually starts at 9:30 once the toss takes place. So anytime before 9:30, the ground staff, they in charge of the pitch. they can prepare that pitch to however they see fit. They can, roll it. They can do whatever. They can roll even up until 9:29 if they feel like they want to, because game hasn't started yet. It's only the curator is in charge of preparing the pitch, so they can roll or prepare, do whatever to their heart's content. So once the game has started, which is 9 in our example, our Carl's game starts at 10. Our toss usually takes place at 9:30. So once that toss takes place, now the game has started. Now the law kicks in terms of when you can roll the pitch, how long you can roll the pitch. But before 9:30, before the toss, curator to roll to his or her heart's content. So now, in terms of rolling of the pitch, once the game has started, only on 2 instances where rolling can take place. What are those 2 instances? The law allows before the start of each innings rolling to take place. We're not now referring to the morning of day one, the first innings. Let's say our Carl's game starts on Monday, and 10 o'clock the game starts. 9:30 is the toss. We're not referring to rolling the first innings of the match. We're now referring to the game has started. The first ball was bowled at 10 o'clock. Now the law tells us before the start of each innings after the game has started, the batting captain at the time has the option of rolling. The option is there, doesn't have to exercise the option, but the option is there to roll. So let's say side A bats first at 10 o'clock. By 1:30, side A gets dismissed. Now change of innings, 10 minutes later, side B will now go bat. So in that 10 minutes change of innings, what can happen? The batting captain has the option to roll. So we'll get to now in terms of rollers and how long. But the point I'm just trying to make is each subsequent innings, the first innings of side B, the second innings of side A, once B is dismissed, and then the fourth innings or the second innings of side B, once the second innings of side A is completed, then before the start of those innings, batting captain has the option to roll. That's the first instance. Second instance, before the start of each subsequent day's play. So the morning of day 2, batting captain has the option at the time, whoever's batting has the option to roll. Morning of day 3, batting captain has the option to roll. So now we know when the rolling can take place. How long can the rolling take place? 7 minutes. Max of 7 minutes. So can a captain roll for 5 minutes? Of course the captain can. Can a captain roll for 3 minutes? Yes, yes he can. Can the captain roll for 1 minute? Of course they can. Even 30 seconds. It's all the law tell us not for longer than 7 minutes. And in terms of timing for these rolling, we now know it before each innings and before the start of each subsequent day's play. So in terms of the subsequent day's play, the law gives us a window period for that rolling to take place. So if our day's play is going to start at 10 o'clock, the window period for that rolling is 9:30 till 9:50. The latest they can start the rolling is 9:50, but that's our window period. I mentioned earlier, the batting captain has the option to roll, does not have to exercise the option, but the option is there. And one of your duties before the game start is to ask the curator, how many rollers available at international cricket. And most provincial grounds, they do have 3 rollers available. there's a hand one, a medium, and a large one, you'll ask the batting captain which one he or she chooses. When it comes to the innings, a completed innings is when the side is all out. That's when the innings is completed. At the fall of a wicket or the retirement of a batter, there are balls still to be bowled, but there's no further batter to come in. Innings also completed. Innings is completed when a captain declares. When a captain forfeits the innings, also a completed innings. And the law allows for you to either limit the first or second innings to amount of overs or to amount of time if that agreement has been made before the game started. As soon as the overs is done, let's say I can remember in the Western Province Cricket Association's leagues when we still played two-day cricket, there was a limit to the first innings, 60 overs. Once you get to 60 overs, there was like a compulsory declaration. You can face a max of 60 in your first innings. So this is an example of once you get to that 60, your innings is now completed. The other side needs to come back. So when it comes to the toss, let's see who needs to be there. Let's see where it needs to take place. Let's see the timings of the toss. So the captains needs to be there. You cannot just have one captain there. Both needs to be there. And it needs to be captain. Coaches cannot be there. Sometimes the captain is not available. The deputy can come, but it needs to be one of the nominated players. So captains needs to be there. Who else needs to be there? One or both umpires. Preferably both, but there are times where maybe one is stuck in traffic, at least one. Where does it need, must the toss take place? The law tells us on the field of play. But we know customary or the custom of the toss these days is it takes place next to the match pitch. But according to the law, anywhere on the field of play. And what are the timings? There's a window period for the toss to take place. If it's a 10 o'clock start, window period is 9:30 till 9:45. So you cannot toss earlier than 9:30, nor can you toss later than 9:45. And in the law tell us, once the toss is completed, whoever wins the toss, that captain needs to notify the opposing captain and the umpires immediately whether he or she is going to bat or bowl. They cannot tell you, umpire, I first want to go discuss this with my coach. I'll get back to you in 5 minutes. No, you needed to have that discussion before the toss took place. So once the toss is completed, Captain A wins it, he or she needs to tell you, I'm batting or bowling. When it comes to the follow-on, the lead on the first innings. So in a 2 innings match, that's 5 days or more, like Test cricket. We don't get the games these days that's more than 5 days. So Test cricket, 5 days. The lead in the first innings needs to be 200 runs. And if that is the case, the captain has the option of asking the side to follow on. The option is there. Captain doesn't have to exercise the option, but the option is there. If the lead is at least 200 runs. So let's say side A scores 500, and side B gets dismissed for 295. The lead is 205. Because the lead is at least more than 200, the captain has the option to enforce the follow on. Not all game spans over 5 days, but the same principle apply in a 4-day game or a 3-day game. But the difference is the amount of runs. So in a 3 or 4-day game, the lead needs to be 150. In a 2-day match, the lead needs to be 100. And in a one-day match, the lead needs to be 75 runs. In terms of notification, as soon as the captain decides to enforce the follow-on, captain needs to notify you, because you in turn needs to notify the opposing captain. So whatever the decision, whether it's to enforce it or not to enforce it, they need to inform you, because this message needs to be relayed to the opposing captain. So when it comes to the first day's play that is lost, and the emphasis here is on the first day's play that is lost. Not a single ball was bowled on the first day of the game. And I'll use our test match as an example. So our 5-day test match, let's say between South Africa and India, starts on a Monday, 10 o'clock. The whole Monday, the rain out, not a single ball gets bowled. Now the game starts on day 2 at 10 o'clock. So now the law tells us, because we lost the whole of day 1, not a single ball was bowled, in terms of the follow-on, this will now be seen as a 4-day game, and the follow-on, the minimum lead for 4-day game follow-on is 150. And that is what you need to apply in our match, where the whole of day 1 was now rained out. But again, the emphasis is on first day's play lost. And it's not like initially when I started, you start on time on day 1. So let's say you complete day 1. Now you lose day 2. All of day 2 is the rain out. Now you only start day 3. So what I used to do is I thought, okay, we lost now all of day 2, so it's now a 4-day game. So now the follow-on is 150. No, my interpretation of the law was incorrect. It's only the first day's play that must be lost, or the second, or the first 2 days lost, or the first 3 days lost. If you start on day 1 and you lose subsequent whole days, this 0.3 is not applicable. When it comes to boundaries and determining the boundary of the field of play, important duty of the umpires before the toss, umpires to determine the boundary of the field of play, and that boundary to be fixed for the duration of the match. Important, no part of any side screen when it comes to the boundary shall be within the field of play. Wherever practicable, boundary to be marked by a means of a continuous white line or an object on the ground like a rope, if possible. We all know it's not always possible, especially in lower league cricket. But then the law guiders were telling us, so if the boundary is marked by a white line, the edge of the line nearest to the pitch shall be the boundary. Objects such as a flag, post, or board, merely to highlight the position of the line marked on the ground, must be placed beyond the boundary and is not itself the boundary. So in terms of the inside edge, if it's a line where the arrow is pointing, that's where the boundary is. Similarly, a fence, same principle to the rope and the post and flags. So just to emphasize, so if the boundary is marked by the means of an object that is in contact with the ground, the edge of the ground part of the object which is nearest to the pitch, as where that arrow was pointed. If there's an obstacle within the field of play, that obstacle shall not be regarded as a boundary unless the umpires decided that before the toss. So that's why it's important. If there are poles or a tree or anything, it needs to be discussed. Decide how you're going to handle it. You usually get guided by the custom. I mean, they should have played cricket at that particular ground for many a year, and there's usually a method how they handle it. If there's no method, you then decide on how you're going to handle it, and it will be that way for the rest of the game. But if there is a custom at the ground, follow the custom. Person or animal coming onto the field of play while the ball is in play shall not be regarded as a boundary unless the umpires determine otherwise at the time. Has it not been for the contact between the ball and the animal, the ball would have gone for a 4. The law allows actually the umpires to give a boundary 4. But though that's a decision for the umpire or umpires alone to make. When it comes to boundary catching, I'm going to play you a video.
Boundary catching. In cricket, a catch is considered to be fair if the fielder is within the field of play and the ball hasn't touched the ground before he or she catches it. The fielder must have complete control both over the ball and his or her own movement. Can a batsman be caught over the boundary? Well, this being cricket, the answer is yes and no. If the fielder catches the ball like this, with part of the body grounded outside the field of play, then the lucky old batsman is not only not out, but also scores a 6. However, if in the same situation the fielder has leapt for the ball from within the boundary, but not from outside it, caught it whilst airborne over the boundary, but managed to throw it up in the air before touching the ground, he or she can then step back into the field of play to complete the catch. It doesn't matter if the fielder throws it to a teammate or completes the catch on his or her own. In this scenario, the same batsman who just scored 6 would in fact have been out. As they frequently say, it's a funny old game. For Oodle's more details on this subject, take a look at Laws 19 and 33 in MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
So I want us to look at this video, and we are going to point out exactly how the law works. You can also listen to the commentary. For once, the commentator actually explains the law perfectly.
I've saw Matt Renshaw do this before, and I'm pretty sure this is out.
So if his feet are planted when he takes the catch again outside the rope, it's 6.
So if he makes the first contact from where he jumped inside the rope, and then when the last contact is made, he's back inside the rope, it's out. So as long as when he threw it up a second time, his feet were in the air, yes, the last point of contact has to be back in.
So when he's outside the boundary rope, when he takes the ball again, his feet must be in the air when he throws it up again.
Effectively, he could throw it up 300 times as long as his feet are in the air.
Okay, that was perfectly explained by the commentator. So just to summarize exactly how this law works is first contact must be within the field of play. Whether it's the first fielder touching it or a subsequent fielder touching the ball, their first contact must be within the field of play. If that first contact is within the field of play, like in this example, they then allowed to go outside the ground or outside the field and handle the ball then. But there's a condition. They need to, when touching the ball while they're outside, nothing should be touching, like in this example. There should be no contact between the fielder and the ground when touching the ball. And then when to complete the catch, the fielder must be back inside the field. So first contact must be within. Then the fielder is allowed to go outside. There's a condition. At any time while touching the ball, the feet should not be touching the ground or any object beyond the boundary. And then to complete the catch, the completion must be within the boundary. So those are the conditions that you need to check when adjudicating these type of boundary catches. The first question you ask yourself, was the first question inside? Sorry, was the first touch by the fielder inside the field of play? Whether it's a first fielder or second fielder. I'll come back to the second fielder now. Let's first just handle the first fielder. So the first touch by the first fielder, was it inside the field of play? Now, because the first touch was inside, the law now allows that fielder to go outside and to play the ball. But there's one condition. Should not, while in contact with the ball, any part of the fielder should not be touching the ground or any object beyond the boundary. And then to complete the catch, that fielder needs to be back inside the field of play to complete the catch. So that same principle applies to a second fielder. So what is the same principle? The second fielder also needs to touch the ball inside the field of play the first time. And then that fielder can then go outside the ball beyond the boundary, touch the ball, but nothing should be touching while in contact with the ball, should be touching either the ground or any object, and then to complete the catch needs to be back in. Because I've seen a scenario where the first fielder, so if you can just visualize this, first fielder touches the ball inside the field of play. He now throws the ball up. The second fielder stands outside the boundary looking at this. So now that's the second fielder, now the ball is in the air, close to the second fielder. But remember, the second fielder was standing outside the boundary, initially looking at what the first fielder is doing. But now the second fielder sees, oh shit, the ball is coming to me. He now catches it, but he jumps in the air. So his foot is not touching the ground. He catches it and throws it up in the air back into the field. And where the first fielder is now so waiting to catch the ball. In this scenario, that would be boundary 6. And why boundary 6 is because that second fielder, first fielder was okay because his first contact was with inside. But the second fielder was the problem because the law also wants the second fielder's first contact to be inside the field of play. In this scenario, the first contact of the second fielder was was beyond the boundary or outside the boundary. And for that reason, that is not allowed. Hence, that would be boundary 6. Comes to buys and leg buys. I'll start with buys. So the only conditions that's in place for buys is it should not have touched the bat or person of the striker. If that is the case, batters can run buys. For many years, actually for all my playing years, 25 years of playing cricket, I thought even for buys, if the player doesn't offer a shot, they cannot run buys. That is what I thought for 25 years. It's only once I did my umpiring course that I actually saw. I see it's not a condition. Even up until today, players still think if you see a batter leaving a ball, but it doesn't touch anything, it goes through the keeper's legs, players will still shout, oh, he's not allowed to run because he didn't offer a shot. It's not a condition when it comes to buys. If he didn't touch anything, nor the bat, nor the person of the striker, they can run, even though he or she didn't offer a shot. But when it comes to leg buys, now what are the conditions of leg buys? Now the law say, the ball now strikes any part of the person or protective equipment of the striker. Now for leg buys to be awarded, 2 conditions needs to be satisfied. There needs to be an attempt to play the ball with a bat. The striker avoided being hit by the ball. If this is the case, they can run leg buys. So these are the 2 conditions. When allowing leg buys, you need to ask yourself, did the striker either play to attempt the ball with a bat or try to avoid being hit by the ball, and then the ball struck, let's say, the leg, now they run, no problem, they can run. You'll allow leg buys. When will you not allow leg buys? Just the opposite of this. We just said the conditions that needs to be in place. Striker needs to play a shot. or try to avoid being hit by the ball. But now, for leg byes not to be awarded, if the striker did not attempt to play the ball with the bat, nor the striker tried to avoid to hit the ball of the bat, they are not allowed to run. Yes, if they didn't know the law, you will actually allow them to run. It's not your fault that they didn't know the law. They're not supposed to run, but it's not your fault that they're running and they don't know the law and they're running. So you will delay your call of dead ball until either the ball reaches the boundary or as soon as they complete that first run, now you call and signal dead ball. So because of their stupidity, you give the fielding side or allow the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batter. Yes, they're not supposed to run. The law doesn't allow that run. But it's not your fault players don't know the law. And if they do run, you give the fielding side the opportunity to run either batter out. But once they complete the first run, now you call and signal dead ball. Or the ball reaches the boundary, now you call and signal dead ball. So this is when leg byes are not to be ordered. So now the striker, let's say, didn't offer a shot and they do run. You need to disallow all runs to the batting side. So meaning no runs will count. You need to return any not out batter back to his or her original end. So they completed a signal. You need to tell the batters, please, a striker, you need to go back to the striker's end, and non-striker, you need to come back to the non-striker's end. Even if a batter is dismissed, let's say the strikers run out. He's stupid or didn't offer a shot. Ball went into the covers. Cover picked up the ball, side at the non-striker's end. Striker sort of his or her ground. You give the striker out, run out. So what do you do? Now the striker is dismissed. You still need to return batters back to the original end. So in this scenario, the striker was the run out at the bowler's end. So, but the striker is now out because it's a run out. So the new batter is going to come in. Which side the new batter needs to go to? The striker side. The new batter needs to face the next ball because the non-striker needs to come back to the original end that he or she was. If there was a no ball, it will be applicable, and now we will signal it to the scorers. Now, importantly, you'll give any 5 penalty runs that's applicable from this ball. And there's one exception. If a ball hits the helmet that was placed behind the keeper, that's the only penalty runs that will not be added to the batting side. You will not give those penalty runs because the reason is this run should never have been taken. But yes, the batter was stupid enough to take the run. So what the law is telling us is, so let's say they sold the arms, the ball hits the pad, ricochets into the covers. They now decide to take a run. Cover fielder picks up the ball, size at the keeper's end. The throw is a bit off target and goes past the keeper and actually hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. So now what usually happens, as soon as the ball hits the helmet, we'll call and signal dead ball. And what do? We'll give 5 penalty runs to the batting side. But not in this scenario where leg byes are not to be awarded. In the scenario where batter didn't offer a shot, they take the run, fielder picks up the ball, threw at the keeper, misses, ball then hits the helmet. In this case, the ball will become dead as soon as it hits the helmet, but the law tells us now the 5 penalty runs that usually gets given to the batting side will now not be given to the batting side. There are like 3 or 4 instances in the law where this happens. If the ball is a protective helmet where you won't give penalty runs, this is here one of them. If you do have questions, interrupt me at any time, or unless you want to keep it till the end, you can then ask me. There's probably about 4 more laws that I need to cover before I open the floor for Q&A. So you can maybe write down any questions that you do have, or you can ask them immediately. In terms of fielders absence and substitutes, we've covered fielders absence when we did penalty time. So what I want to focus here is on substitute fielders. So umpires to allow a substitute fielder, what are the conditions? That fielder became injured or ill during this particular match. Then you'll allow a substitute fielder. Or for a wholly acceptable reason, you'll also allow a substitute fielder. Now you've allowed a substitute fielder. The law tells us that substitute is not allowed to bowl or be captain or bat. That substitute can only field. But the law go on further saying that substitute can actually keep, but with the consent of the umpires. So when it comes to cup substitute, not allowed to bowl, bat, or captain, but can be keeper with the consent of the umpires. When it comes to fielding, so the law tells us when it comes to the wicket keeper, the keeper's the only player that's allowed to wear gloves and external leg guards. No other fielder is allowed to wear gloves or external leg guards. You'll often see short leg fielders wear pads, but you'll see those pads are inside the trousers. That is allowed, but keepers are allowed. Yes, they can have it inside if they want to, but most keepers have it outside. The law allows for the pads to be outside, but gloves only the keeper. So just see, here's an example, and you'll see it's in the season international captain, and look what the captain did.
Yo? 520 runs in fine score दे देते
Babar Azam wearing a glove and actually caught the ball, and then that was deemed illegal fielding. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, right, the first delivery, there's 5 penalty runs, and that's because of illegal fielding, because Babar Azam picked up Rizwan's glove and used it to catch the ball,
He's an international captain, don't know the law, only the fielder, the wicketkeeper is allowed to use gloves to catch the ball. It is illegal fielding if any other player, while the ball is in play, picks up the glove and fields the ball with it. So what is the punishment for illegal fielding? The law tells us. So when it comes to fielding the ball, you can use any part of your person to field it. In terms of extending his or her clothing and using this to field the ball, that is not allowed. So in terms of point 1, like if you use your cap as an example to field the ball, that is not allowed. Any part of your person, you can use your foot, your arm, your leg, your bum, anything. But if you use anything else, like a cap, that would be deemed illegal fielding. Extending your clothing to field the ball, also illegal fielding. If you discard a piece of clothing or equipment willfully, and that piece of equipment makes contact with the ball, that's also seen as illegal fielding. The emphasis here is on willfully discarding a piece of equipment. So if a player in running to field the ball and the wind blows the cap off the fielder's head, that's accidental. That is, and the ball, if the ball's while in play should touch it, that should not be deemed illegal fielding. But let's say short leg fielder had the helmet on the head, and the short leg fielder takes off the helmet, puts it on the ground, and chases after the ball, and now throws the ball in and it hits the helmet. That's an example of willfully discarding the helmet, and when the ball while in play makes contact with it, it will be deemed illegal fielding. And just to emphasize what I said, if the law tells us it's not illegal fielding if it accidentally falls from the keeper's, from the fielder's person. An example of illegal fielding. So what is the punishment for illegal fielding? If there was a no ball or wide, it shall always stand. Runs completed by the batters shall be added to the batting side score. Also the run in progress, if they crossed at the instant of the illegal fielding happening, that run then to also count. Ball to not count as one for the over. 5 penalty runs to the batting side. You'll inform everyone and report the incident. So you can see fairly hefty penalty for illegal fielding. So the law allows for the fielding side to wear helmets, and when they decide not to use helmets, where do you put those helmets? You put it behind the keeper in line with the stumps. So what happens? While the ball is in play, if he strikes the helmet, the ball to immediately become dead. 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Any runs completed by the batters before the ball struck the helmet to be scored, and the run in progress if they cross also to be scored. Movement by the fielders, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Any movement by any fielder after the ball comes into play and before the ball reaches the striker is unfair. Except if there's slight adjustment to the fielder's stance or position in relation to the striker, that you'll allow. Movement by any fielder towards the striker or striker's wicket that does not significantly alter the position of the fielder, that is also allowed. And a fielder is allowed to move in the response to the stroke the striker is playing, like those reverse sweeps or sweeps. As soon as they indicate they can play the sweep or the reverse sweep, the fielder is then allowed to move. If in the event of such unfair movement, umpire to call and signal dead ball. There's further punishment. If there was a no ball or wide, it shall stand. 5 penalty runs to the batting side. You'll inform everyone and report the matter to the governing body.
Abdoellaah, can I just, sorry.
Yeah.
Just when it comes to external leg guards being worn by, let's say, the silly point fielder or short leg, I've had it before that let's say for instance that the fielder chased after a ball and with the fielder sliding, it broke the pad's strap that was initially let's say worn inside the pads, but now so they replaced the leg guards with just a pair of spare wicketkeeper pads. If those pads cannot fit inside the pants, you must then actually inform that player he's not allowed to wear external pads. Is that correct?
That is correct. Unfortunately, the law is strict. The ICC is also strict on this. They even so strict. You'll find sometimes the pads being so big, you try to put the trouser over it, and the trouser, the big portion of the pad sticks out. They also don't want even that. You need to find smaller pads, or stand there without pads, or don't stand there.
Yeah, happy. Thanks.
Okay.
Fair catch. A catch shall be considered fair if the ball is held in a fielder's hand, hugged to the body of the catcher, or accidentally lodges in his or her clothing, helmet, or protective equipment. But of course, this being cricket, it isn't always that simple. If a fielder deliberately uses an item of clothing to try to catch the ball, it is not out, and 5 penalty runs are awarded to the batting side. However, the ball can be caught after it has deflected off the other batsman, an umpire, another fielder, including off a helmet being worn, or even if it lodges in a fielder's helmet. Perhaps the main criterion for a catch to be considered fair is that the ball must not touch the ground before being caught. Here, for example, the ball does not touch the ground even though the hand holding it does so in effecting the catch. This is a fair catch. And then there is the question of catches near the boundary. This is such an interesting subject that we've given it a film all of its own. To catch up on everything to do with catching, simply refer to Law 33 in the Blue Book.
So how many runs to be scored? If a striker gets dismissed scored, no runs to be scored. When it comes to dismissals, the law only covers who's number 1 and who's number 2. So who's number 1? Bowled is number 1 and caught is number 2. Why do they give a ranking? There are times where a striker can be dismissed more than one mode of the dismissal. So which one do you take? Here the law rank bowled to be 1 and caught to be 2. So if there is an occasion where the striker is dismissed in more than one mode, you need to ask yourself, was one of those modes bowled? Okay, if not, okay, we know bowled is number 1. Now you need to ask, is one of those nodes of dismissal caught? Because we know caught is number 2. So if it's caught, then you know you need to go either with 1 or 2. Otherwise, you take them in chrono, whichever happens first. But what I mean is, let's say in the example where the batter playing back cut the ball straight to let's say straight to point, gets caught, but also tramps on the wicket. So now there's a hit wicket and there's a caught. Which one do you take? You take caught because caught take precedence. In the example of, let's say the batter gets an edge. If you can just visualize this, bowler bowls a foolish ball, batter gets an edge. It goes past the bat, but hits the edge, goes past the bat and goes to first slip who catches it. But on the way to first slip, as it goes past the bat, it actually takes off one of the bails. So clear edge from the edge of the bat, takes off a bail, goes to first slip, gets caught. How's the batter out? I've just said you, bowled is number 1 and caught is number 2. So you always check if he's bowled one of them. In this case, yes, bowled is one of them. So how will the striker be out? The striker will be out bowled. When it comes to run out, the law tells us that while the ball is in play and the striker is out of his or her ground and the wicket is fairly put down by the action of a fielder, even if a no ball has been called, and the law tells us it's irrelevant whether a run is attempted or not. For many years, I actually thought for a run out to be affected, you must attempt a run. Law actually tells us striker actually or batters actually needs to stay behind that popping crease all the time that ball is alive, because the law allows for either batter to be a run out if the wicket is fairly put down by the action of a fielder. There are times where a batter is not out run out. If a batter is not out run out, the batter ran a single, the ball went to fine leg, puts the bat down behind the popping crease, but now the ball comes in from fine leg straight to the batter's head. The batter then, trying to avoid being hit by the ball, now leaves the wicket to avoid the ball hitting his or her head. And let's say the keeper catches the ball and takes off the bails. In this instance, the batter will not be out run out. Why? The batter was in the ground. Batter only left it to avoid injury. Batter also not run out if there's no touch by the fielder. A fielder must touch the ball for a batter to be out run out. If there's no touch by the fielder, batter cannot be out run out. That's why you'll see, let's say a batter hits the ball straight down the ground and the bowler sticks out the hand, but let's say the ball doesn't touch the hand, it goes against the wicket and the non-striker is half a meter outside the ground. That will be not out. Why is it not out? Even though the non-striker was outside the ground, the bowler didn't touch it. A fielder must touch it for the bowler to be given out. Also, the law tells us a batter striker will not be out run out in the circumstances of he sees out stumped and a no ball has been called. Just an example of this: spinner bowls a front foot no ball, umpire calls it, but the striker was double stepping. Striker now misses the ball and the keeper takes off the bails. The keeper appeals. You now know you cannot be stumped off a no ball, but the keeper says, "Yeah, but I'm appealing for run out." In this instance, where a no ball was called and the striker's out of the ground and the wicket was fairly put down by the fielder, but the striker was not attempting a run, the striker gets immunity from being run out. This is the only time where the striker gets immunity, but the striker should not have attempted a run. That's all what the law is trying to tell us here. In terms of non-striker leaving his or her ground early, there is a window period for this run out to take place. It starts, the window period opens when the bowler takes his or her first step and the ball becomes alive. The window period closes as soon as the bowler is past the release point. It will differ from bowler to bowler because a Malinga will have a different release point to a let's say Kagiso or a Bada. So you need to look at the release point. Is the bowler past the release point? If yes, the window period has now closed. So a run out of the non-striker must happen in the window period between the ball coming alive, bowler taking that first step, and once the bowler is past or is a release point. Let's look at example video to illustrate this.
Running out the non-striker. Running out the non-striker occurs when a bowler runs out a batsman who has strayed too early out of the popping crease by removing the bails. It is a much debated form of dismissal, with some suggesting that a warning should be given. However, leaving his or her ground early is an attempt by the non-striker to gain an unfair advantage, and it puts a batsman at risk of getting out. The law doesn't require the bowler to give a warning, and he or she is entitled to run out the non-striker until the moment when he or she would normally have been expected to release the ball, in which case it's perfectly fair for the bowler to run the non-striker out. For more detail on this perfectly legal practice, see Law 4116 in the MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
Just going to show you examples of how legally to do the run out and how not to do it. Let's look at the correct way of doing this.
No. for sure. I know it's in the laws of the game.
So you can see she's not past the release point. That's why this is legal. Not past the release point when she put the wicket down. That's why this one is legal. Let's look at one that's not legal. And you can see this is a international player.
Third umpire director, got a review for run out. We want to check whether the bowler's arm has gone past the vertical. That's satisfied the law for run out at the bowler's end.
Yep, this is critical because that's actually correct. Yep. So once the back foot is where most people
roll it through, roll it through, roll it through, roll it through, roll it through further. Now his arm's gone past the vertical, therefore not out. Repeat, decision for the big screen will be not out.
I'll tell you what, that's Sean Craig in the hot seat, and that's a very interesting decision. The right call from the umpire. Yep.
So that is the incorrect way of doing it. Past the release point, not out, dead ball. Thank you, everyone. That's my portion for the evening. I'm now opening the floor for Q&A.
Just for clarity from my side, if with a boundary catch dismissal, so let's say the first there's two fielders going for the ball close to the boundary. The first fielder taps back the ball, still inside the boundary, but then goes over the boundary. The second fielder basically overrunning the ball, going past the boundary, and then leaps back from outside the boundary, and then catches the ball mid-air, but landing inside the field of play. Am I correct in saying that is deemed to be a 6 because, or not out because the fielder has caught the ball from outside the field of play? That being his first contact with the ball, the second fielder.
Yes, you need to ask yourself the question. Was the first contact by that fielder inside the field of play? Did he jump from within this field of play? That fielder jumped from outside the field of play.
Yes. Yeah.
And yes, you say, yeah, but his first contact is inside, but he jumped from outside. Yeah, and for that reason, that fielder gets seen as being beyond the boundary. That's why it would be not out, but it would be boundary 6.
Even though the ball landed inside the field of play.
Yes, it gets seen that fielder was like, it's almost like, let's say there was a pole outside the boundary and the ball hit the pole. You get seen as being beyond the boundary.
Okay.
You're not allowed to touch that ball. It should be boundary 6 and obviously not out.
Perfect. Thanks.
I also have a question.
Yeah, we're in Q&A, so you can shoot as many questions as you want.
It's also on law 33 court. I just want to know if any fielder gets hit against the head and the ball ricochets from the fielder's head towards another fielder, but you can actually see as the umpire that the moment the ball hits the fielder's head, he's unconscious. Do you wait for the catch to be taken fairly before you call dead ball, or do you call dead ball immediately for player safety? How do you handle that?
That's your decision on the field of play to make. For serious injury, you call it immediately. You don't wait to see where the ricochet is. That's not your concern. With the player's safety is your concern. You don't care about wicket. Yeah, but the fielding captain says, yeah, but Mona, we would have got a wicket. That's irrelevant to you. Player safety, you don't look at the game situation, the match situation, wicket or no wicket. If you see a serious injury to a player, whether it's a batter, whether it's a fielder, you call and signal dead ball. And obviously, anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So yeah, call it. Did I answer your question, Kicks?
Yes, yes, thank you. Even if the fielder has a helmet on and you deem it as a serious injury, say for instance short leg fielder, ball gets hit against the helmet, ricochet back to the keeper, but in your opinion that looked as if it was as if it was unsafe or dangerous towards that field, and you call dead ball. Do you call it immediately, or is that for the umpire alone to
Yeah, it
decide
is a
when to call it?
subjective. It's a subjective call. You need to make, looking at the scenario. You need to make that call. You have the law that backs you up. If you call and signal dead ball, you have the law that covers you. It was, according to you, it was a serious injury. That's why you intervene, whether they like it or not. That was your call.
Okay, happy. That was my only question.
Yeah, okay. No, no issue. Any other questions? Jo's aan niks vra nie.
Waar Stacey in die chat box?
Oh, says in, sorry, in die chat box, sorry. Is
Nee,
in the
nee,
chat
ek dink
box?
nie daar is hy. Nee, ek spot sommer net.
Okay, yeah, yeah. She said to me there was something urgent came up. She is listening to it, but she had to drive to a family emergency somewhere. But she's listening to our session. So hello, Stacey. We miss you. If there's no further questions, yeah, no issue. I mean, if you can think of something later tonight or tomorrow, you know, feel free to WhatsApp me anytime. Okay, I've just stopped the recording.